Hello. So, I've talked on this channel about um, being a light worker and what that means. A lot of people think it's this somewhat grandiose thing, and in some cases it is. In my experience, though, a lot of times it's little moments and little seeds that you plant. As I said in my one video not too long ago, it's rare for me to get to see seeds that I plant germinate and bear fruit. Recently I've been getting to witness some of that. It's quite wonderful. My brother from another mother came back to rehab tonight, had a very healing conversation with somebody, and it was quite wonderful. Um, and he told me that part of that process was something I had said to him, which he then repeated to this person, and it clicked for both of them. So a lot of times that's what it is to be a light worker. You just say the right thing at the right time. Not because you necessarily know what to say all the time, but it's just something that you're called to do. Which oftentimes that's why I speak. Even when I make these videos, I make them because I feel compelled or called to make them and say the things I do. And I usually say them with certain intent and purpose. Um, I think I described it one time as we're the pathfinders, uh, trailblazers. Oftentimes as light workers and or earth angels, not mutually exclusive, by the way, but similar enough. We go through a lot of the process of healing so that we can show others how to do it. We go through a lot of the introspective inner work to be able to identify certain behavior patterns and all of these other things so that when we recognize them in somebody else, we can point them out and help guide them. Do I do that with constant conscious effort? Not necessarily. Sometimes I'm not even sure why I'm saying something to somebody, and it'll come out later, and I'll go, oh, that's why I said that. Like it'll make sense. Hindsight's always 2020, of course, obviously. Um, but I almost always, when I'm speaking to somebody about something they're going through or whatever, or I almost always, not all, almost, but always try to not only speak from a place of experience, but with the intent of guidance and healing, essentially. It's the difference between listening to understand and listening to reply. You have to truly listen to understand the person first before you can actually give valued input, and vice versa. If they're not listening to understand you, then there's no point. And oftentimes, that was weird. I don't know why my phone and camera just did that weird little jump, but okay. Anyway, oftentimes, should be a little more careful how much I broadcast, I guess. Anyway, uh, saying nothing is just as powerful. And I run into that situation a lot where there are things I will see and know, and I call it the burden of truth. But I know if I speak on them at that particular time, it will have no effect or sometimes reverse effect. Um, there are a lot of times that I don't say things to people because they're not ready yet. And I will have to kind of steer a conversation through my own experience to a particular doorway that they need to go through. Of course, it's entirely up to them as to whether or not they go through it. So yeah, just a little update on that. About it. Been a nice, peaceful day. Um, Never underestimate the power of prayer. Two of the most effective prayers I have ever said is for the universe to grant me the willingness to love myself the way it loves me unconditionally, and a prayer that I have oftentimes said for people in situations that I either see others struggling with or that I have struggled with, like, for example, in situations where one may struggle with forgiving someone for a transgression. I usually ask the universe or God to do for them what he did for me or she did for me, whichever your label preference is. Um, I find that to be very, very effective and oftentimes very, very quickly it comes to pass. All right. Have a blessed night.